How to Raise a Child. My beloved and I got married. Then we had children. I love to read, so the first thing I did was get tons of baby books. I'm on the How to Raise Children ones now. Arthur was kind of exasperated at how many I requested, but no expense is too great for my child.
There, all done. Can you handle it from here?
Of course. Wait, have you burped them yet? Now, what do you do again? Rub their back? Or leave them be? Hang tight. I started flipping through a few books. Most say you're supposed to gently pat their backs. All right, I'll do that then. I held my child and gently patted their back. After a few moments, there was a soft burp. Good, the books had the right answer. Having a good book to refer to for your first child is really important. When they first started rolling over, I got worried they'd get stuck on their belly. So I checked my books. What should I do? Each book says something different. Which way is the right way? In the end, I read through a bunch and just went with whatever got mentioned the most.
You don't have to look up every little thing, you know.
I know I don't, but I wanted to do the best for my baby, and thorough research told me what best was. And besides, looking up and finding an answer gave me a sense of relief. It feels good to know you're doing the right thing. On the other hand, not knowing was nerve-wracking. Anytime something happened, I would run for my books. Then one day, the baby had a fever. Panicking, I grabbed the nearest book. As I did, my beloved gave me a sharp look. You reached for a book before your child? Which is more important to you? Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. I hadn't even tried to think for myself. I'd picked up a book before even going to my sick child. I'll think for myself. Promise. I looked my wife in the eye and said that. Then I made the same promise to my child. Books have a lot of useful information, but you have to think for yourself first. And they have other, better uses for your kids anyway. And so, Mr. Tiddles made it home safe and sound with tail held high, master of all that he saw. That's bedtime stories for one. It might be a little early, but I wanted to share my love of reading with my child. Books are amazing. With a turn of the page, you can become an adventurer or a king. You can explore new and wonderful lands without ever leaving your room. I'd like my child to experience that joy. Though I'm pretty sure they're still a bit young to understand them just yet. But they seemed happy enough to sit on my lap and listen. After a moment, I realized they were staring up at me. Whoops, almost forgot, and they lived happily ever after. When I said that, my child bounced and cooed with delight. Back when I'd looked in my books for answers, my beloved said we should look up our own way of doing things. She was right. Our child isn't the only one learning. We are too. I reached for the next book and began to read aloud. Leaving our child with my beloved for a bit, I went shopping and ran into Arthur. He told me he'd found a book on raising children so rare that it was legendary. I told him I'd rather look at my child than book pages. Arthur smiled and told me it looked like I'd found my own way. I smiled back and said, and they all lived happily ever after. The end. Rune Factory 4. Come on, let's go.
A family recital. Today, he and I were going to rehearse together. We set up in our usual spot, in the usual place.
There, how's that?
He plucked a string, checking its tune. Perfect! I listened a moment, then nodded. After we were married, he took up music. He was humble about it, calling it difficult, but I knew he had talent. It didn't take long before we could play duets. Performing together was amazing. Our melodies entwined and capered like dancers on the stage. I enjoyed it so much time would cease to exist. There were days when dusk fell before the last notes escaped our strings.
I think that's enough for today.
Yeah. His voice broke the spell, and we called an end to the day. We put away our instruments and went home. In the beginning, we only played for ourselves, but in time, the town square became our stage. The first request came from Arthur and Lady Ventuswil, wanting more public events. But while our duets were fun, part of me hoped for a trio one day. It never occurred to me we'd eventually have a quartet. In time, our cozy home expanded to include not one, but 2 children. A set of fraternal twins as cute as could be. Exposed to music since birth, they loved it, always copying the little tunes I would hum. They were curious about instruments, too, touching and watching closely when we played. Oh, they're so cute! It's still too early for them, but they're figuring out how it works. I talked it over with my beloved. We decided when they were old enough, we would teach them to play. I would be so happy if they liked it, but I don't want to force them. Several months later, the day of their first music lesson finally arrived. We had let them play with instruments, but this was their first formal lesson. I went over the simple chord progression again. I hope they can do it. A part of me was nervous they wouldn't do as I taught them. Go on, let's try it. My children slowly started playing. They thought hard about the melody, plucking each note one by one. The atmosphere was tense and heavy, both fearing to make a mistake. Ah, one of them said. They'd missed a note. I frowned, thinking. My children saw and blanched. My husband had managed it when I first taught him, but perhaps it was too hard for children. I don't want to frustrate them or make them sad. I sat and tried to figure out how to say that when he laughed. His reaction set bells ringing in my head. That's right, music is expression. There's no good or bad. You play with joy and your notes become song. Theirs was just another type of expression. Sheesh, I'm the musician. What was I doing? I picked up my instrument. Then I began to play, matching my song to that of my children's. When the notes came together, it was like magic. Their faces lit up as I joined them. Then he began to play. They say the whole is sometimes greater than the sum of its parts, and they're right. Quartets are so much fun. My children watched me carefully. Then they cautiously plucked out the notes, one by one. It's okay to play what you want. Have fun. And so they did. Tension turned to joy. When they made the earlier mistake and I frowned, that must have intimidated them. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry, everyone. And thank you. After that, all 4 of us would go out to rehearse together. Apparently, a traveler walking by heard us one day, and a rumor started. It said that if you passed by a certain field, you might hear a family of elves playing music. Their song was an auspicious one, and hearing it would bring you happiness. The end.
Rune Factory 4. Come on, let's go. To the future. What's going on here? What are they talking about? The 2 standing there in the doorway of the shop are Granny and my partner. I want to know what they're saying, but I'm too far to hear. Huh? What did Granny just hand over? I'm super curious now. Guess I'll ask them later. It doesn't look like they'll be done anytime soon, so I'll go up alone. Kinda makes me feel left out, though. I'll ask at dinner. I take it back. I'm dying to know what's up.
I'm too busy trying to find a good time to bring it up to enjoy my food. So, what were you and Granny talking about earlier?
Oh, I just asked how she was doing.
I tried real hard to make that sound natural, but I got squat. And it sure didn't look to me like they were just chit-chatting. Well, didn't Granny give you something? Again, all I got back was a whole lot of nothing. What are they hiding, dang it? My mind went straight to the worst scenario. It's the Empire, ain't it? They're up to something again. And the two of them are combating it in secret because they don't want to worry me.
What? No.
Now that sure got a reaction. I got a really surprised look. She got up and took something off the shelf on the wall. Huh? What the heck are these tiny things? I took a closer look at the small pieces of cloth. Wait, are these socks? Whose socks? Don't tell me. I looked up and she nodded at me. Oh, so that's what it was. These are baby booties. Geez, Granny, getting ahead of yourself much? I was touched by the gift, but it'd be way too embarrassing to say that out loud. Geez, is that all? That's enough embarrassment for one night. I'm gonna hit the sack. Man, I'm beat. Good night. She looked like she wanted to say something else, but I went straight to our room. Is it really okay for me to be this happy? It's good that the Empire's keeping quiet. For now. But still, if something happens and I have a kid to look after? Well, we might have kids someday. Don't think I'm ready just yet, though. Would I even be able to raise one right? And besides, whatever. Stewing over it ain't gonna help. I should sleep. But my brain wouldn't shut up. Thoughts just kept coming, and I didn't get much rest. Not too long after, I really did have a kid. Now that I think about it, she and Granny were probably talking about just that. Time passed. My kid grew and grew. All that stuff I worried about before? Yeah, not thinking about it now. Several years later, the day of my kid's 6th birthday came. We decided we'd all have a picnic together. We picked a good spot, too. The big field was great for racing. Too slow! I ran around at top speed. Guess we know who they took after. They get mad quick. I look back at my kid, trying super hard to catch up to me. I'd better show him just what we adults can do, huh? I started running again. Faster and faster. As usual, I didn't hold back. Ah! My beloved sat there and watched. Her face saying, "What am I gonna do with you?" Don't tell her, but I loved that look. I loved my kid, too. So much that I wanted to give him a goal. It seems mean now, but forgive me. Come to think of it, once I got married and had a kid, I changed. All that Empire stuff, yeah, that doesn't bug me anymore. I mean, who cares about him? I got different priorities now. I'm married, I have a kid. It's like being happy changed the whole world. For them, I'd do anything. Anything at all. Ah! So today, I ran. I ran and I shouted, "Hey, you two! I love you!" The end.